Hey guys, Levi here with Trident Fly Fishing, and today we're going to be tying Hoov cicada. This is a pattern designed by Greg Hoover, Penn State entomologist. Used to teach the fly fishing course there. Great guy. He designed this fly for imitating the periodical cicadas that hatch every 17 years. And currently they're hatching on the mid-Atlantic, East Coast, and in the southern Tennessee area. So this is a pattern that is essential to have in your box if you're in any of those areas where brood X will be hatching, because these things are going to get eaten by every fish that can fit them into their mouth. We're starting off with a B10S hook in the vise. This is a size 4. You could also tie it in a size 2 to match these patterns, or to match these cicadas, I'm sorry. Size 2 is fine. And this is also a pattern that you can tie to match the dog day cicadas that hatch every single year. So this is a good one to know about, and it really is effective for matching cicadas. I don't know of a better pattern. So go ahead and start your thread on the hook. We're using 3/0 flat wax Danville thread in the color black. So wind your thread. I'm going to wind it a little beyond the bend of the hook. These cicadas have a pretty large body. So snip the excess. And this is a stinger hook, so you have a little extra clearance. So put a thread base down, and we're going to move into some foam. Using a foam for the body, it is Evazote foam. You can also use closed cell foam. Either are fine. This is 1/8 of an inch wide, which is a good size for this fly. So wrap a thread base down and get your thread right about an eye's length or so away from the eye. And we're using black 1/8 inch Evazote foam, and you can use any closed cell foam for this. This just happens to have a nice look to it, a good shine, so that's what I want to tie this with. So go ahead and cut yourself a section that's about, a 1/3 of an inch, and it's going to depend on the size of your hook, but this is about a 1/3 of an inch for this size 4 hook, and you can tie this fly larger to match the dog day cicadas and smaller, or should you need to match a smaller cicada. It's a pretty versatile pattern. So first things first, get this tied in. Go ahead and loosely wrap this. If you start with loose wraps, you won't need to worry about breaking the foam with your thread. So start loose, and then we can crank down on it after that. And build yourself a nice underbody. These cicadas are definitely chunky insects, so you want to have a nice bulky body. It's not like tying a mayfly where you have a slim body. This is a big old bug. And this fly lands really well on the water, has a great plop whenever it lands, and it really does a good job at attracting fish. And like I said earlier, when the periodical cicadas are hatching, every single fish in the water is going to eat these. So if you have this pattern in your box, you'll be able to fool them. If you don't have it in your box, you might catch fewer fish than you would otherwise. So we have a thread base laid down here, and the body's looking nice, and now we're gonna move into an orange dubbed body. If you were tying this to match the dog day cicadas, you'd use a white dubbing body to match their body. We're using hairline dubbing in hot orange. This is good stuff. Creates a really nice buggy profile. And with all this foam involved, you don't have to worry so much about this fly not floating. And all of these materials can be found at tridentflyfishing.com. And any order that is over $49 will ship for free. So if you want to capitalize on that and tie up some cicadas, we have everything that you need. And again, if you live in an area, if you look at the map for brood X, if you live in an area where these things are emerging, you should definitely tie up a few of these patterns. You need them to match that hatch. And I can't stress enough how significant it is whenever these things are on the water. It's like fishing that happens once every 17 years. So apply your dubbing and just wrap these, each wrap nice and close to one another. So you build that big chunky body, and we're gonna stop about 60% of the way up the shank. And you'll notice that the foam in here, we tied this in long, and that is necessary for this bug. And actually, I think my body's still looking a little slimmer than I want it to, so I'm gonna apply some tight dubbing to this, or some skinny dubbing rather, just a bit, but spread it out so it's not super chunky like we were just doing. Excuse me. And I'm gonna wrap this back once and forward one more time, just because I want to build up some bulk. I didn't quite like the way that that looked. All right, so one more application of dubbing there, just to clean this up and make it nice and thick. It's an easy fly to tie too, not a lot of steps involved, and you'll go through them for sure if you're in the area where these are hatching. So now we have our body dubbed, we can fold this foam over and loosely wrap it so you don't cut through it with your thread, and just wrap it all the way to behind the eye. So we're gonna fold this over again. And if any of you guys have a pattern that isn't Hoov cicada that you're getting ready for this hatch with, go ahead and toss that in the comments. Or if anyone has a story for those guys who have been around for a while of the last time these emerged, definitely throw that in there, because if this is your first periodical cicada hatch, you're in for it. It's very exciting. And again, this pattern can be adapted to a dog day cicada too. So those hatch annually. Every summer, those are the ones you most often hear making that cicada noise in the right towards the middle to the end of the summer. So that's a good pattern. Largemouth bass especially eat those. And trout will too if you're in an area that's heavily concentrated with dog day cicadas. So we're gonna move into a wing now. And we're using a sort of unconventional wing pattern. It was actually George Harvey who came up with this, because in his old age, he was having a hard time seeing things. And this Krystal Flash just really does a good job at reflecting light. And it's hard to miss on the water. And it also floats pretty well, especially if you add some floating in there. So go ahead and get yourself some pearl flash. And we're using probably, oh, that's 20 strands or so. And we'll double it over to create a little wider wing. And we're also gonna accent it with some orange, because these periodical cicadas have all sorts of orange in their wing and body. So double that over so you have twice the flash. And now we're gonna move into some orange Krystal Flash, and it's hot orange actually. And you don't need nearly as much of this as you do the pearl. You just wanna accent this in here. So maybe 8 to 10 strands, we'll double it over. End up with maybe 16. So snip that off, fold it over, and cut it in the middle. And just lay it directly on top of the pearl Krystal Flash. And that will give you a nice accent. And then what I like to do is, you can see the orange Krystal Flash in there. I like that to be on the bottom, because, you know, the fish are looking up at this fly, so then they'll actually see it. Whereas if it were on the top, they're much less likely to see it. So go ahead and tie that in right about the middle. You do want the wing to extend beyond the body to match the profile. So go ahead and just wind that down, and then you can trim it off, and just, there's enough here to be trimmed. So throw that aside and save it to tie your next fly. And you want your tail, or your wing, you want your wing to go beyond the body. So that's how the naturals do it. And you want to match that, and we'll trim it at the end. All right, and we're gonna tie some legs in now. And we're using barred crazy legs in a hot orange color as well. And you need a set of each legs on either side. So cut yourself off some, or one rather, and then just divide it and snip it in the middle. The legs on these aren't super big. Tie in the one nearest to you first. Is a big fly, so won't really mess you up if you do the one closest to you first. So one on that side, you can see it's nice and easy in there, and one on this side. All right, and make sure that, okay. So now we're gonna move into the head of this fly, which again is hairline dubbing in hot orange. So grab yourself some of that. You wanna make a nice big head on this fly. This isn't a fly with a delicate presentation, and you're not going to fish it that way either. Like I said, this has a nice plop on the water that really attracts fish. And once, like I've said many times now, but once these fish are conditioned to this bug, it's all they care about. It's just a very high calorie meal for them, and they're very prevalent. So wind your dubbing up, and you need to pull those legs back like I just did to get some dubbing in front of it. You want your thread to end up just in front of the wing here so we can pull this foam back. So hold your legs out of the way, get some foam wrapped there, wrap some foam there, and there's my thread. So now we're going to take that foam that we let extend out of the front and pull it rearward and just tie it off right in front of those legs. You can see that creates a nice head on here, and it also adds floatability. So now we obviously don't want this big piece of foam coming out of the back, so go ahead and trim that, and you can trim it to be about half the size of the head. That'll nicely support the wing and keep everything aligned. So this is actually a fly that doesn't get tied off right behind the hook eye, it gets tied off right here. So go ahead and whip finish right where we just tied that in. And if you can whip finish by hand, excellent time to do so. Makes it a lot easier than using a tool. So hit it with 2 whip finishes, and the fly's not quite done yet, but you can pull that tight and snip your thread. So now we're going to trim our wing, and we want the wing to extend about 15% of the body beyond the body, because that's how the naturals, their wing extends beyond the body of the fly, or the body of the cicada rather. So go ahead and trim that, and that is Hoov cicada. I'll see you guys next time, and I want to thank you for watching.